Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another animation analysis video, and today we are going to be taking a look at the brand new LR free-to-play Goku Jr. and Vegeta Jr. And of course, thank you to the boy Dokkan World for allowing me to use the essays from his channel to analyze for this video. If you want to watch the full video, link will be in the description, of course. Now, I was kind of thinking about how I wanted to continue forth with this series, because obviously I'm going to do every new Dokkan Fest that comes out now, which, by the way, in about 30 minutes after this video goes up, you'll be seeing good old Ginyu, so keep an eye out for that. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, because I want to actually do this series a little bit more, and not to mention, obviously, it'll be interesting to sort of give my thoughts on units that aren't big boy Dokkan Fest units. I wanted to cover these guys, especially since, too, they are obviously technically a part of the 7th anniversary, being the 7th anniversary EX units. So let's go ahead and hop right into it here. You guys know the drill by now. We like to watch the animations through one time, and then after we watch them through one time, we will go through and break them down. The card art looks very nice for these guys, as you saw in the beginning of the video, and I have to say, I quite like the aesthetic with this card. I think, even though I honestly am not sure, I don't think that these are technically anything that they actually did, right, in the anime. I believe, actually, somebody said that one of these super attacks is actually something from the Metal Cooler movie, which is interesting that they decided to take it from that and they didn't use it for a Goku and Vegeta from the Metal Cooler movie, which is kind of a shame in that regard. But regardless, it's cool that it's being used either way. Yeah, this scene right here, obviously, where it would be that they would blast through to Cooler. But it's a little bit different, and I think they could still honestly do a cooler version of it, because obviously, you know, they sort of punch through him, and then it sort of shows their faces. And I think that the animation could definitely do that. I believe that the SSR is the exact same as the TUR, if memory serves. Yeah, literally the exact same thing. So let's go ahead and break this down. Oh yeah, by the way, this was cool that this got added as a boss card. So of course, to start us off, I believe this is their 18 key, because I think he goes backwards in terms of animations. I quite like, before we even like look at the actual animation itself, the aesthetic that they decided to go with for these guys. Like I said a little bit ago, it feels very close to the GT aesthetic, and obviously they did not have much to work with for these guys, especially since, if memory serves, and everything that I know about the scene, because I've not actually seen GT, I'm not gonna, you know, try and beat around the bush with you there. These guys don't even like do anything crazy. Obviously, they don't ever actually work together for a super attack. So, of course, they didn't have too much to go off of when it came to giving them super attacks. But I like what they ad-libbed here. So, obviously, the key around them looks really, really great. I think them posing up and flying forward looks pretty cool. This shot is definitely one of the best. I gotta say, I really, again, like the coloring that they decided to go with for these guys. It feels very GT, despite this obviously not being from GT, right? It's very cool, and I think that they did a good job. It's nice that even though these are basically just PNGs flying forward, they still look really good, and they still give them a little bit of detail. Obviously, they do animate the hair here, which is really cool, because, you see, the thing is, when it comes to super attacks that aren't like Dokkan Fest or LR super attacks, you know, free-to-play units and the side banner units type of thing, I try to set my bar for expectations a little bit lower, right? Just because obviously they always put the most resources into the Dokkan Fest units, right? That's just what makes the most sense. And usually the free-to-play essays aren't as crazy as the main units. However, it is good to see that nowadays, even the free-to-play units, of course, this is an LR, so that may contribute a little bit, but it's really cool to see that they're even getting that sort of treatment, with obviously Vegeta's hair sort of blowing in the wind here. We have a little effect, and Goku's hair is actually moving a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell because his head is so big. But his hair is definitely moving a little bit here. The edges are moving around, as actually his clothes are also moving around. That is also hard to tell. It's crazy how fast this moves, considering this is on 1/4 speed. But yeah, take a look at his gi right there. His gi is definitely moving a little bit. And obviously they do open up his mouth, which is pretty cool. The key effects look great also. Don't think I have to mention that because they are pretty good looking as it is, as you can see. Right, so we have a pretty smooth kick from Vegeta, which again, I'm not going to go through the whole spiel like I did in the last couple videos where, you know, obviously slowed down, it'll look a little bit more janky with the sort of like pose sort of thing. But I actually think that this is pretty good. Because you want a quick snap like this, whenever you're doing a quick punch and then a quick kick, I think it looks good. And what's nice to see is that even the sprites that are pretty small here actually look decent, right? I do think that the lineage around Vegeta here is maybe a little bit too thick. Maybe it's just my personal preference coming in, but then again, that's what this video is, right? Obviously, it's an animation analysis, right? Not necessarily an animation breakdown, which I guess it kind of is in that way, but it's me analyzing it and giving my thoughts. So, looks good. Definitely like the little kick. Obviously, we have Goku come through again. Unfortunately, they do reuse this, but I mean, it's literally the same shot, so I guess it makes sense for them to save the resources. And then obviously, we have his his fist fly forward and run into the Cybermen. Then we cut to this shot, which is actually really, really cool, I have to admit, of the boys both kneeing the Cybermen. They give the little effects, and this is a nice way to represent this as well, with both of their knees being in the shot, to give it a little bit more oomph, because they definitely didn't have to add that part there. Then obviously we have the boys flying forward, which also looks good, and this is the part that people were saying were sort of ad-libbed from Cooler. I do like the way that they fly forward. It almost kind of reminds me of an old Flash game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the key effects look great, and I like how they just have them run into. I do kind of wish that there was something after them running into it and going into a flash of light. Like if they were going to reference the Cooler essay, maybe it is because they're saving it for like a LR Cooler movie Goku and Vegeta. But I really feel like if they were going to do it, they should have just gone all out and have them like punching through the enemy sprite. I think that would have been cool. But overall, I actually really like this essay. I think it's pretty cool. There's a lot of good movement in it. Even though there are a couple of little janky bits, I still think that it does a lot of great stuff. A lot of interesting angles. A lot of side angles, I will say, which I think that they could have maybe varied up a little bit. But there's definitely some things in this essay that I think are very, very cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 12 key now. Again, the smaller sprites look really great for obviously how small they are. Again, I think the lineage is a little bit too thick here. It's definitely better than it was on the other Vegeta sprite that we saw, but I still think that it's maybe a little bit too thick. Again, I know you can't make it like omega thin, because obviously then you just wouldn't be able to see it at all, but I definitely think that does look pretty good overall. Obviously, we have the nice looking key effects. The boys teleporting look great. I always think that Dokkan does a great job of teleporting in. And I gotta say, these movements are actually great for how small these sprites are. The way that they're able to articulate this is really good. They have a snappy movement where it needs to be, right? Obviously, Vegeta Jr. winding up and then chucking the punch at the Cybermen. And then, of course, we have the Goku doing the same thing except with a kick. And I think that they do the parts where they need to snap the animation well. This is also a good way to cut here as well. They do a good job of sort of masking this kind of weird interaction. Obviously, you have Vegeta winding up, and then they cut it so that he's already being hit, and it zooms out and you can see it. I think this right here is probably the best use of my term, that maybe the lines are a little bit too thick, because whoa! For how small this sprite is, it looks like my boys in the animation department straight up took a Sharpie to this bad boy. My gosh. But yeah, still looks pretty cool. Obviously, again, a simple animation. We have Goku come through and throw a punch. Definitely a nice zoom in here to mix it up a little bit, because obviously with this right here, they could have just had him move up a little bit, right? After Vegeta kicks. Sorry, I didn't think I went back that far. They could have just had the sprite, right, like move up a little bit with a punch in the air. But the nice zoom in is a good way to sort of vary it up. And this is pretty cool, obviously giving another unique angle here, showing it from the Cybermen coming towards the audience and you're actually looking at them from the front. Very, very nice if I do say so myself. The wind effects are also a great way to show them flying away. Obviously, we have the card art on display now, and then we move into the boys about to launch their key-based attacks, and I gotta say, they also, whoops, and I gotta say, they look really, really great here. I love the way that, again, aesthetically they look. The colors are very pleasing. Again, feels very reminiscent of the GT style. I think that their actual assets are just super high quality here. They look very, very well done. I like the minimal movement of the hair on both of these boys. Even their clothes are moving a little bit, which is very cool. Vegeta's hand also moving a little bit. The key looks great. I will say the one thing that kind of looks a little bit is the actual key blasts in their hand. Personally, I'm not a fan of them just doing like circles for key. I know it's kind of like, oh, well, what else would you do? You know, the Kamehameha in their hand is like a circle. But I don't know. I've seen other animations where they sort of make it crackle and pop and they make it look a little bit more dynamic. So I definitely would have preferred that, but absolutely not the worst thing. We have the boys firing their blast forward, which even though they are little lines, it is cool that they give a little bit of difference with obviously Goku's being just the straight blue Kamehameha, and obviously Vegeta Jr.'s having these little spikes here, which is cool. This is nice as well, having them sort of combine into one attack. I like how they represent that with the edge of the key, followed by the blue explosion at the end. Pretty cool, if I do say so myself. Again, I think with these free-to-play I almost said SSRs. I guess it's because this appeared on the screen, which is technically the TUR. Obviously, with these free-to-play LRs, it seems like that nowadays they have a lot of scenes where the characters are a little bit farther out and they're a little bit smaller, which is definitely a lot less hard to animate, but they still have different scenes where the characters are a lot more close up to the camera and the shots look really, really clean. We'll take a look at this animation too, even though obviously this is literally just the same super attack that we saw before, but just with the base form version of the characters. So basically just no Kamehameha, Super Saiyan shenanigans. I'm mixing up my words here, I'm sorry. But nonetheless, obviously it still looks pretty good. It is quite literally the same animation, except with a different aura and a different hairstyle. And even so, I will say, I do still think that they look pretty reminiscent of the GT sort of aesthetic in this essay as well, because obviously it's a little bit easier to sort of emulate that with the Super Saiyan style, because of course the way that the key sort of reflects off the body, I guess would be the best way to describe it, right? In that kind of regard, it's easier to emulate the GT style, so I think doing it in base form is definitely a little bit more difficult. So it is cool to see that I think that for the most part, right, they got it pretty down pat, if I do say so myself. I think it definitely looks very much so like that shading. Very cool stuff. And that is going to do it, I believe, for the analysis of the GT Goku and Vegeta Jr. Definitely let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. I definitely enjoyed taking a look at some super attacks that were obviously a little bit different from the normal stuff. I'm going to keep doing these videos going forward, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. And again, definitely check out the Ginyu video that is going up in a little bit. Let me know what you think of these guys' essays, of course, in the comments section below. Let me know if you're a fan of this unit as well. I cannot wait till these guys get a EZA as well. It'll be cool seeing these super attacks with the EZA effects shooting up and down the side of the card art as well. Hope you guys have a good one, and I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.